Welcome to the Earth Goodwill project. Today's discussion is on recent events in Australia, particularly the earthquakes, the 7 or so earthquakes that have happened across Victoria and the southern eastern part of Australia. So recently, this year, over the past 6 months, I've been on a spiritual sabbatical to rest and recharge my batteries, ready for events in 2022. And I've also been spending a lot of time developing the templates for New Earth. And I've got a new series of videos that I have been writing in relation to some surprising and uplifting events that are coming towards the end of 2021 and well into 2022. As noted on news agencies across the world, there was a large earthquake measured at 5.9 on the Richter scale to hit Victoria, particularly in the region of southeast Australia, and that was felt across Tasmania, South Australia, regions of Victoria, New South Wales and Canberra, so basically the whole southeast of Australia. And it has also been noted that in recent days and today there were earthquakes felt across Chile, Hawaii, California, Papua New Guinea, Tonga, the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Japan, and other smaller island regions across the Asia-Pacific and the Pacific Oceans. So the epicenter of this earthquake was at Mansfield, which is a sleepy country town at the base of the Victorian Alps and the ski fields in Victoria. And this is quite near, about 38 kilometres near to Mount Buller, which is a major power point in Victoria and Australia on the east coast of Australia. It's a matter of public record that Melbourne, Australia, the city of Melbourne and its people have been in lockdown for over 300 days in the last, or thereabouts, in the last 18 months. The most heavily locked down city of any place in the world. These collective lockdowns have decimated the social and economic fabric of Victoria, with many people losing their businesses, their jobs, their livelihoods, their homes, and so on. There have been a significant uptake in people migrating outside of Victoria, given the opportunities to cross borders into northern regions and across into the west over the last 18 months to escape the oppressive regime in Victoria. Also, concurrently, Victoria or Melbourne is experiencing day 3 of violent protests in the Melbourne City Business District of construction workers who are fighting for their human rights to not take the jab, otherwise they'll lose their jobs. And they have an absolute human right to make that choice themselves, because what you put into your body you're responsible for, and no one really knows the adverse effects of what's happening with this experimental gene splicing technology that the world is currently being subjected to. With the communications between the people and the government, it's basically shut down. It is not two-way, it's one way. The Victorian government is acting as a dictator, spewing out mandates and changing laws to bring in draconian and oppressive reform right across the state, locking people in the homes, giving them curfews, banning them from working, banning them from seeing their family and friends, banning them from exercising, which is causing exceptionally massive health problems across the health system. Basically, all of Victorians' human rights have been wiped away, or almost all of their human rights have been wiped away. A similar event has happened in New South Wales, and that has led to a massive spike in numbers of people experiencing a bug that's been floating around the world. And the same thing has happened in Victoria. So there's no feedback mechanisms. There's no iterative feedback from the people to the government. It just doesn't exist anymore, and that is a hallmark of democracy. So democracy in Eastern Australia, at least, or at least in Victoria, the state of Victoria, is dead. This extreme anger with the Victorian people and the mandates making it compulsory for them to take a jab to maintain working in their industries such as construction and health and emergency services and childcare and medicine and elderly care workers and school teachers. These mandates and laws are causing extreme anger towards the police and towards the Victorian government. I'm not going to make any comment on whether this jab is a good thing or is a bad thing, because I'm pro-choice and every single person on the planet is responsible for their choices and they'll have to wear the consequences of their actions. So this channel is not about suggesting what you should do and what this is something that you must decide for yourself. And each and every person's circumstances and medical situation is different. One law should not suit all people because everyone's situation is different. The earthquakes that happened this morning at 9:15 a.m, they went on for around 20 to 30 seconds, and I would describe them as unusual. It was certainly a very different feeling to the earthquakes that I experienced in Los Angeles in 1987. It has been noted across the board that other people are saying similar things to me. So after the earthquakes, I did notice that a lot of mothers and babies and dogs and children were out on the streets in the parks with their coffee. The mood was rather jubilant and joyful. In point of fact, everyone was smiling, even through their masks, and everyone was quite happy at the day's events. I can conclude, based on my observations and based on my discussions with friends right across Victoria, that these earthquakes were divinely guided and that they were to break the passe between the government and the people, and that they were designed to begin to break the oppressive regime that exists with the Victorian government and its hold over the people at the moment. Essentially, the economy is dying and the social fabric of society is dissipating every day that people are locked in their homes. And it's also my belief that events that happen in the physical body are mirrored in Mother Earth, because we're all connected. So the ley lines, the meridian points of Mother Earth, songlines of Mother Earth, are mirrored in the society's physiology, their chakra points, their meridians in their physical body. This build-up of anger and tension that is held in the physical bodies of humanity is reflected in the physical body of Mother Earth in Victoria, and this has been released like a release valve, let out, exploded out in the form of earthquakes across Victoria. So there have been a further 7 earthquakes and tremors noted across Victoria today, and these are by far the biggest in Victoria's recorded history since European settlement, and the second biggest in Australian history. There were some earthquakes, I believe, in the 1800s when European men came and settled Australia and they massacred millions of Aboriginal people, and they did reach apparently around 6 on the Richter scale. So what happened during this earthquake was, prior to the earthquake there was a calm before the storm. All the animals went quiet. Normally in the morning where I live, the birds will chirp, they have their morning song, and it's very beautiful and harmonious. Whereas this morning there was some disquiet with the birds and the chirping, it didn't sound normal. And then during the earthquake, all the birds stopped chirping, and then after the earthquake, they all started chirping loudly, concurrently. However, it was not harmonious, it was chaotic chirping, which is something that I haven't really heard before from the Australian birds. Generally, I was taught by Indigenous elders, Australian elders and guides, and they always tell their students to watch Mother Earth, to watch the skies, to watch the waters, the winds, the rains, the birds, the kangaroos, emus, horses, insects, the marine life, and listen to Mother Earth, listen to the animals, watch what they do and learn from them. The animals always intuitively know that there's something not quite right, even domestic animals like dogs and cats. Their behaviour changes prior to catastrophic events. So for me, this was a lesson to learn from Mother Earth, learn from the birds, learn to read the land, and learn to have respect for the elders, past, present and emerging, and the ancestors of the land, and all sentient beings that live on the land. Because as above is so below. Humans and Earth are interlinked. Now, there has been some suggestion in social media circles and spiritual circles recently about the corruption of ley-lines, by government bodies and military bodies. As a light worker, I'm aware of this. I've been spending decades healing and activating the ley lines in Australia and the power points. I travel to them quite often, reconnect the grids. A lot of the Indigenous guides and elders, they won't talk about these things publicly, maybe one or two may. They talk about how in recent years many of the ley lines, particularly in the region where the earthquake happened, the Mount Buller region, have been corrupted and polluted. Basically, this is a call to arms to light workers across Victoria and Australia to continue healing the earth, and I'll talk about that further towards the end of this video, because humanity and Mother Earth are connected. We need to protect and respect Mother Earth in order to maintain our lives here safely and harmoniously on Mother Earth. So the desecration of the song lines or the ley lines, they contribute to health problems in the human body, because there's connections between the chakra points on Mother Earth and the chakra points on human energy systems, and the meridians in human energy systems, and the meridians in the ley lines in Mother Earth. So the Indigenous elders have always taught this, and they've always known this to be true. It's no secret that there are military activities and road building and train line building activities going along the ley lines and the song lines across Victoria, and this is desecrating those song lines. And the animals, the brumbies and the kangaroos and the emus and the birds and the marine life, they all need these ley lines. They need the song lines because they're their highways that guide them to find food and shelter. And this is what they've been doing for millions of years, or hundreds of thousands of years. And the Indigenous Australians have used these song lines to travel across Australia for 100,000 plus years since they've lived on this continent. So by desecrating the song lines or the ley lines of Mother Earth, that contributes to health problems in the human collective. And those health problems have been manifesting as heart problems, lung problems, neurological problems, reproductive problems in humanity across the earth in the last 18 months. Now this has been blamed on some type of external event, which I believe has levels of truth to it. However, if you look after Mother Earth will look after you, and you'll have a strong constitution and good health. So there are ways to mitigate potential bad health by looking after Mother Earth. She will look after you. When I tuned into events this morning, after the earthquakes in Melbourne, I received a message from my team in spirit that things were not as they seem. I was also told that there would be more to come. I reflected on this message for the rest of the day, and sure enough, there were another 6 earthquakes to come. And I was also given the message several nights ago that the ley lines in Victoria needed to be healed and reactivated because they were damaged from pollutants. What those pollutants are, I couldn't say, I haven't looked into it, but this is a call to arms to all light workers across the world to heal the continent that they live in, because those ley lines are vitally important not only to Mother Earth and all the sentient beings in the river systems and the winds and the rains and the sun, but also to humanity who lives on Mother Earth. I've also been getting the message, and this has come through quite clear, and it has to be repeated very clearly, is that light workers have already won. They keep telling me that the light has won, the light has won, the light has won. So we're currently living through a golden age, and this is the last time that humanity on Earth is being given an opportunity to make things right, because the rest of the cosmos is relying on the people on Mother Earth to balance out the mistakes of the past in the age of Lemuria and Atlantis and other periods in the Iron Age, mistakes that we made as a collective. So many light workers and star seeds have reincarnated on Mother Earth during this time to remedy the mistakes of their past actions in past lives, and to heal their bloodlines and heal their ancestral lines so they can move forward into this age of Aquarius, which is the next golden age, and that runs for 2,000 years. Well, the golden age runs for 25,000 years, but the age of Aquarius runs for the next 2,000 years. So we're at the beginning of that age of Aquarius. So the key to success with communication is of all people, and when I say communication, I'm talking about effective communication with body language, verbally, telepathically, in writing, through the media, through social media, is we must heal Mother Earth, we must reconnect the ley lines, we must activate the ley lines with light, and we must treat Mother Earth with respect. It's also vitally important for light workers to hold the light, matter what's going on, because the new Earth infrastructure is being built and we're very quickly, rapidly moving into new Earth, the Golden Age, and that's going to be occurring from December 2021 to January 2022. There are amazing events that have been planned and that are going to take place across the Earth in 2022 that will rapidly accelerate humanity into 5D consciousness, to higher levels of ascension. So a lot of the Christians, they refer to what's going on in these times in 2021 and 2022 as like a spiritual war between the dark and the light forces fought in the celestial realm. Well, that's essentially exactly what's been going on. Sometimes these wars between the dark and light spill over into the 3D plane, which is the physical plane here on Earth, and this is what we've been seeing play out, karmic battles playing out on Mother Earth in 2020 and 2021, and these began in 2019 and in some cases 2018. So all people that are currently living in Australia have soul contracts to be here at this time, and they've incarnated or relocated to Australia based on those old karmic contracts from past lives that they had in Australian soil when they were Indigenous Australians or European settlers colonising Australia, or in times of Lemuria. There are no accidents, everything happens for a reason. And they did mention September, November and December 2021 as key months for Australia. Always mentioned to me in recent decades that Australia, particularly the state of Victoria, particularly Melbourne, is of vital importance for the leadership and the development of these new earth energies. So a lot of starseeds and light workers have incarnated in Australia and have lived in Melbourne, worked in Melbourne for the last 2 decades, and their job was to hold the light and to help bring about these changes coming into Earth at this time. So the spiritual hierarchy have advised me in recent months that there's going to be Earth changes coming forward. Now, everyone in the spiritual community on Earth has known this for many decades. It's common knowledge. Most people in the mainstream populations also know this to be true. So we've always known about the shifts in the Earth's crust and the tectonic plates moving, but the spiritual hierarchy have made it very clear to me, particularly Archangel Michael, that the celestial realms will minimize the loss of life to humans and to all sentient beings, being animals, as much as possible during these Earth changes. They have told me that they are here to protect us and they will always intervene if you're in danger, and that they're going to absolutely, as much as possible, minimize the loss of life. But what they're saying to me is that the Earth's plates must shift over the coming 4 years, and particularly over the next 10 years. What I've always seen is that the plates between the state of Victoria and Tasmania, which is a southern state below Victoria, there will be a plate that rises, and scientists have proven that yes, these plates do exist. So that will rise, possibly sometime in the next 4 to 10 years, but it may take 100 years. I also saw that the plates will shift between Queensland and New Zealand, making one supercontinent between Australia and New Zealand. That will happen sometime in the next 100 years. And the New Zealand government, their scientists, have released documents in the last year that indeed prove that they have the evidence supporting the tectonic plates lie below the Earth's surface, so that there is certainly potential for them to rise. It's just a matter of when. The spiritual hierarchy have also asked me to pass on the message that the issues relating to bugs causing havoc around the world will fade out by the end of 2021. They were initially meant to fade out in January 2021. President Trump was meant to resume power, however that didn't happen, so that the timeline and the narrative on Earth changed. So they're assuring me that they're doing everything within their power to make sure there will be no more global pandemics over the coming century. The lessons that needed to be learned from these pandemics must be learnt within the next 3 months so we don't repeat this cycle over and over again. So the Christians across Australia today, feedback they're saying is the Victorian earthquakes are indeed a wake-up call from God, and they claim that the earthquake is Mother Earth crying out for all God's children to stand up and speak out against abuses of power by government authorities, technology companies, pharmaceutical companies, and government contractors. So it seems evident on the ground, living in Victoria, that there is extreme anger directed towards the Victorian government and the Victorian police for their brutality against people just going about their normal lives during these lockdown periods. and it certainly seems probable that the release valves of this built-up anger stored in the land has caused an earthquake, or several, 6 or 7 earthquakes in Victoria in the last day. So it is actually rare for earthquakes to happen on such a huge scale of 6.0 in Victoria, particularly so far inland, removed from the ring of fire. So as I mentioned earlier, we haven't had such earthquakes since the 1800s, since European settlers colonised Australia and massacred millions of Indigenous Australians. So there are maps that detail how key military sites act above and below the ground. They tap into these ley lines and they take the power from those ley lines, corrupting them. So this practice, I'm told, must cease. I've been told this by the spiritual hierarchy. And the ancient underground tunnels that allegedly run throughout Australia, they actually run throughout every continent on Earth, and they're closed to the public. They are being used for nefarious purposes and this technological purposes, and I've been told that these practices must cease immediately as well. And I believe that this is all true because the epicenter of the initial quake in Mansfield, there are reports coming from Sky News today that Mansfield state that the telecommunication networks are down in that region. That indicates to me that there is communication infrastructure failures here on Mother Earth, and that these communication networks need to be repaired. Messages I got through from the nature spirits did corroborate this impasse. They wanted to communicate that it was important for humanity, particularly Australians and Victorian citizens, to communicate from their heart and to willing to stand up and speak out and not be shy, and that healing will occur through these communications. So the throat chakra will be unblocked through communicating honestly and with empathy to government bodies. It was important for government representatives to listen to the people who were speaking to them in a respectful manner, and it was important to act in an authentic manner and restore the trust between the people and the governments. So this is a time for courage to speak up and speak out, and not to be scared about the potential government retribution and police retribution for people standing out and speaking out about the abuses of power occurring in Australia at the moment, and indeed across the world, because what's happening in Australia will be reflected across the world. Other messages I received from Spirit were not to act impulsively at this time, and to be considered and consider all points of view and listen to other people and speak up, speak the truth about a situation, and success will come from this. So the messages I received, well, we're meant to be evolving into the Aquarian age, which is a period of peace, harmony, prosperity and joy and happiness and love, the divine love. But how can one bring about joy if they're in a state of oppression, living in their homes, not interacting and socialising or working and engaging in the community? The messages were to bring about these changes that are coming in 2022, the opening of the portals into the 5D consciousness. That is activated through the heart chakra, and that is activated through joyfulness and happiness. So just to conclude, with healing Mother Earth and the ley lines on every continent on Earth, this is achieved very easily by a daily practice of sending love and light, preferably white light, but however it can be green or violet or golden. And you send this energy, visualize this energy being sent through your hands and your feet into Mother Earth to heal the ley lines, to heal the song lines, to heal the meridian points and the power points in your region, across the land, your state and your country and continent that you live in. And if every light worker on the planet was to perform this act of world service with a loving heart, first focus on the heart and think of something loving, and send this love and light into Mother Earth every day for 3 minutes, then Mother Earth will be uplifted and healed, and humanity will raise their consciousness up into 5D super fast. And the positive side effects to all light workers who participate in this daily ritual, they will be rewarded with improved health, improved immunity, immune system, divine protection from harm, joy, peace, happiness, divine love, divine prosperity, and healing and protection from Mother Earth and the celestial realms. Now, also, just finally to conclude with a little bit of science, we as light workers, we like to refer back to the Schumann's resonance, which measures the Earth's frequencies, and they appear to have correlations on the humanity's collective consciousness through energy frequencies. These energy frequencies appear to measure the higher and lower astral realms and the mental planes and the higher celestial planes of consciousness through different amplitudes and frequencies. So the Schumann's frequencies peaked at around 40 leading up to the earthquake, and they reached a significant peak of around 54 at the time of the Victorian quakes. In the week prior to the earthquake, it was recorded at 7.5 hertz, with an amplitude of between 8 to 20-ish. So since this time, all the frequencies have returned to their base values, reflecting a calm. It's important to note that the heartbeat of Mother Earth resonates at 7.83 hertz. This is also the same frequency of Om. So the Schumann frequency measures the magnetic fields around the ionosphere that circles Mother Earth, and when there is big solar activity or ionospheric plasma becomes excited or agitated on Earth with events of global significance such as September 11 or mass meditation events, then the amplitude and the human resonance shift up and down. So it's been noted in recent days that mobs of excited emus were seen running south through Queensland, Australia. And normally emus are solitary creatures. They normally like to mind their own business, and they only migrate in mobs, which are groups of emus, if they were running from drought, or they're seeking, or floods, or they're seeking food, or they're going through seasonal changes. But the mobs that are running across the eastern corridor of Australia, some of their activities have been noted as unusual, as in their migrationary patterns over the past few days. From what I have learnt from my experience working with animals as an animal whisperer and as an animal intuitive, is after speaking with the emus telepathically in recent years, they advise me that their sound that they make, it matches the frequency and the heartbeat of Mother Earth, which is 7.83 hertz. They asked me to share this information with people in the spiritual community and people who work with animals. And this is important because they pick up on, they're very sensitive animals, they pick up on the heartbeat of Mother Earth, so they obviously have picked up on potentially the earthquake that's coming, and they move to areas that for whatever reason they felt safer, or that they needed to be there to help with the healing of people in the southern regions of Australia. I've discussed these things with Indigenous elders across Australia, and they've asked me to share this information with the public as well. And I've got lots of teachings from other animals. But what the emus, I believe, were trying to teach me is the importance of activating your voice, and activating your voice at the same frequency as Mother Earth, which is 7.83, which is staying heart-centered. That's how I interpret what they were trying to teach me. By staying centered in your heart and connected to Mother Earth, you'll be safe. You'll be guided to safe ground, and you'll always find food and shelter and protection. From what I take from this lesson from the emus is it's important to resonate with the earth beat of Mother Earth. Indigenous elders also encourage all people to connect with Mother Earth and their animals and the fish, the birds, the trees, the land and the skies, and to respect all sentient beings and all earth creatures and land systems and water systems, as they're all living systems. So by respecting and protecting the land and all living systems on Earth, Mother Earth will be healthy, all sentient beings will be healthy, but so will humanity. The Indigenous elders have asked me and many other people also to pass this message on to the global collective, who given us permission to do this at this time. It seems that the Victorian earthquakes may well indeed be a wake-up call from Mother Earth to start respecting the Earth, her ley lines and her animals, and her waterways and skies from pollutants, from radiation poisoning, nuclear poisoning, sound poisoning. So this is something to reflect upon and consider about how you might be able to heal Mother Earth in your daily practice every day, and teach this information onto children who can also do the same. So this is a series of many videos that will detail current events on Earth and discuss solutions, practical solutions, how humanity can help solve the challenges that we are facing as a collective. Also discusses the paradigmatic shifts that are taking humanity as a collective from the Piscean Age constructs to the Aquarian Age. Thank you for listening, and Namaste.